This is the AM News. Let's get into the details. The National Labour Commission has made a raft of recommendations to the Ministry of Employment and Labour Relations as part of efforts to avert a full-blown labour unrest. 5 unions, including the Senior Staff Association of Public Universities, the Ghana Association of University Administrators, and Tertiary Education Workers Union, TEU, have already downed their tools protesting unresolved allowance issues. Adding to this wave of dissatisfaction is the Colleges of Education Teachers Association of Ghana, which is set to resume their strike next week, just after ending the longest industrial action in their history, citing the government's failure to honor their agreement. Here is spokesperson for the Colleges of Education Teachers Association of Ghana explaining the reasons for their intended action.
They said that having called off the strike, they are going to expedite action and then work on the migration. Remember, during the NDC era, the migration was done within 2 weeks. We migrated from GES to the current payroll within 2 weeks.
Okay.
So when we declared our strike on the 14th of June, we promised that at West they are going to migrate us within 1 month. And as I speak to you right now, the timelines that we agreed upon which the strike was called off has still not been done. It looks as if we have to go on strike to make duty bearers perform their legitimate duties that every month the government of Ghana pays them. It is because of our strike that is why they were expediting action. We thought that having gone on strike for 3 consecutive times, government would have learned the lesson. This strike that led to 2 people dying and then also 1 person snatching phones and being beaten, and then also losing so much. Government has still not learned her lessons. And as I speak to you, you'll be surprised that the offline data that the technical committee worked on has not come to the college.
Director of Grievances and Negotiations at the Fair Wages and Salaries Commission, Professor Charles Adabu-Opong, has expressed surprise at the Colleges of Education Teachers Association of Ghana's threats to strike again. He emphasized that CTAG's concerns are being addressed following the arbitration award. He believes that a strike action, an industrial action at this stage, would not be beneficial to the situation.
First, with respect to the CTAG issues, I think they had about 2 months strike, industrial action. You were aware. We got to the table with them to address their concerns. Largely, it was about extending the public universities' allowances to tutors of the colleges of education. But before we could do that, we needed to conduct what we call the HR audit, of which DTEC, the regulator, did. Afterwards, we established those who qualify per the arbitration award. And so currently, the migration exercise is about coming to an end, which will then pave way for implementation. So those who qualify will then be giving the salaries due them in respect of the public university policy structure. Very much surprised because their principals, the Principals Association, which is FRINCOF, they are part of the been giving, some reports, updates on what we are doing. Currently, we are even compiling the report for the migration exercise, and we are also meeting them this week to give them a final briefing in terms of the migration exercise that we have conducted. And therefore, if they intend to proceed on any other tangent, that will not help the good cause of the education system, then obviously I'm surprised because they are aware that migration is ongoing. And migration, my brother, if you really understand the processes, you realize that it is not one offshore event that you can just take. You are migrating individual tutors one by one. So it takes time. And we have been able to use a month and some few days to complete the exercise. And so we are going to engage this week to give them the final briefing. And then everything, those maybe you have some issues, they will table, we address them. Then finally, we will send it to Ministry of Finance for onward submissions to controller. And then those deserving staff obviously will be paid. So we have done our part. And therefore, I do expect that since they have been involved, their principals have been involved, they have been giving updates, they know whatever that we have been doing. I'll be very much surprised if they really want to go on strike.
A consultative committee on the review of the Constitution has recommended a raft of changes to the 1992 Constitution. The committee put together by the Ministry of Parliamentary Affairs wants members of Parliament who are appointed ministers to resign from the legislature and also requires parliamentary approval for appointments to some key constitutional bodies, including the Electoral Commission, Auditor General and Shraj. Kwekwa Sante has more in this report.
The 1992 Constitution has not been amended for some time. There are now calls for an urgent review to meet the needs of the time. A report by a commission set up by former President Mills to review the Constitution has been sitting on a shelf and has not been implemented. The Ministry of Parliamentary Affairs under Osei Mensah Bonsu has sought to get this underway and put together a Constitutional Review Consultative Committee chaired by a lecturer at the University of Ghana Law School, Madam Clara Berry Kasati. The committee is now recommending, among others, that criminal trials must start within 6 months after a suspect is arrested, recommending an end to the cycle of setting up committees to review salaries of Article 71 office holders and instead institute a formula. According to the committee, MPs who are appointed ministers must resign from Parliament, while also asking for appointments to Shraj, EC and the Auditor General be approved by Parliament.
The CRC recommended that the time be reduced from 48 hours. They are required to be brought before a court within 48 hours. The recommendation is that it should be reduced to 24 hours, and we are agreed on it.
Former Minority Leader Haruna Idrisu wants any review of the Constitution to diminish the wide powers of the President and end the winner-takes-all phenomenon.
Winner take away all. We must do away with that in the future Constitution of Ghana. This winner take away all. It must be taken away so that Ghana can have a proportional kind of representative government like what pertains in South Africa. We also must water down the powers of the president. So Clara, I'm at it with your thought on it. But go further. Your group must do cross-jurisdictional study. Kenya have amended to the couple minister from MP. What they have observed is that those ministers who are not MPs don't care more about constituents than those who are MPs who want, because of blackmail, they will perform in order to keep the seat.
Retired Supreme Court Judge Jones Duche also wants the jurisdiction of the Supreme Court reduced.
We have to decide whether we want all our ministers to come from Parliament or to be outside Parliament. This hybrid for me will not work. We have been talking a lot about Supreme Court appointments, capping the Supreme Court. Having just exited the court, I know that my colleagues will do a yeoman's job because the Constitution has given them too many jurisdictions, too many. And my younger brother who is here will bear me out. So the Constitution has to look at maybe reducing the jurisdiction of the Supreme Court. You can limit some of the civil appeals.
But with the country in an election season and with barely 3 months to an election, Minister for Parliamentary Affairs, Osei Mensah Bonsu, says this should not stop the review from going ahead.
I've heard people opine that in an election year, there's not much that can be done when it comes to constitutional amendment. With the greatest respect, I beg to differ. All the amendments to the 1992 Republican Constitution happened in 1996, after the election, in November and December. All the amendments happened in 1996, after the presidential and general elections. So I believe that we are not stopped by time to do the consultation that we intend to continue today.
The stakeholders consultation workshop was to afford stakeholders the opportunity to review the report of the CRCC and build consensus ahead of its implementation.
Now, 25 deprived Muslim families at Dinasi in the Efija North district of the Ashanti region have received sewing machines, their accessories and wax print in a move to make them self-reliant. The gesture from Direct Aid Society Ghana follows a need assessment of poor Muslim families done with the support of traditional authorities in the town. The donation brought smiles to recipients, including physically challenged persons who suffered amputations. There's more in this report.
40-year-old mother of 5, Hajja Zainab Yusuf, lost her left limb in a road crash 10 years ago. She had gone to visit her sick sister at a hospital in Bremen when a private car crashed her and her baby just opposite the facility. Though the baby survived the accident, Zainab lost her left limb as doctors at Konfanochi Teaching Hospital amputated it just below the loins.
Na mi nua na yare na me kɔhwɛ no hospital. Nti mi pie me to ade wɔ store. Mi gina hɔ na ɔmo si enwua me dan mani na ɛsɛ. Ana ɛsɛ ɔmo de car no ɛbɛbɔ me ɛwɔ Breman. Na me ba shiketo ahyɛ machi 6 months. Nti ne nyame tumi mu de akɔra na yɛkɔdu hospital bibia anya no. Ti anadwo na ɔmo twa anan no. Ade anche so.
Zainab was forced to learn a trade in sewing because of her condition. But life after the accident has since been difficult as she struggled to set up. But thanks to Direct Aid Ghana, she has received an automated industrial sewing machine, accessories, assorted wax prints, among others. Elated Zainab could not hide her joy.
For so bebre ebaba so ede amame. Me hange crutches me abati ebe me aba na true we metimi ayusu me nan ede apamo ade anya entem. Line niema huro bebre entoma machine chese mi hunu ne me nka age me nsamompo. Nyankopon enhira Direct Aid for ne eba omutirimu a ema omutimi ekaye mobrohunfo aye ni bi. Na yenso yetimi si yeboka se ne me nso me wo machine we me wo niema we ni omo hwere Nyankopon enhye omo anamu.
Zainab is among 25 deprived families selected to receive aid from Direct Aid Ghana. Each of the beneficiary families received aid worth 10,000 Ghana cedis. One of them is 21-year-old seamstress apprentice Inusa Fatimatu.
We say a very big thank you for everyone, for each and everyone that sponsored these things. We are grateful for that. May God bless you abundantly. And we promise to use it to support ourselves and also others.
Officials of Direct Aid Ghana hope this gesture will promote social inclusion as the finances of beneficiary families are improved. Zanuddin Mohammed Abubakar speaks for Direct Aid Ghana, Kumasi.
We are doing this program to enhance the financial situation of every family in these 25 families that we are sharing. So we are using this opportunity to thank the Direct Aid and then the donors who supported these things to be given to this poorest family.
Direct Aid, which operates in all African countries, was first established in Ghana in 2001, providing educational, developmental, healthcare, among others, to deprived communities. From Kumasi, for Joy News, Ohimenteria reporting.
In other stories, faith-based organization GlobeServe Ministries International is harnessing the power of religion to combat child labor and trafficking in the Pru East district of the Bono East region through dialogue. The group, who together with its partners rescued 5 children, say there's an urgent need for stakeholders in the area to work together to help protect the vulnerable children who are exploited on the Volta Lake. Anasabit has more in this report.
Child trafficking refers to the exploitation of girls and boys primarily for forced labor and sexual exploitation, sometimes sold by a family member or an acquaintance, sometimes lured by false promises of education and a better life. These children are often held in slave-like conditions without enough food, shelter or clothing and are often severely abused and cut off from all contact with their families. Here in Yeji and its environs, these activities of child trafficking are common, especially along the Volta Lake. To help curb these worrying menace, GlobeServe Ministries International, a faith-based organization, is engaging parents in the area to help combat child slavery along the Volta Lake. The church, in partnership with Westwood Community Church of the USA, organized a seminar for over 200 parents to strategize towards curbing this practice. Reverend Anthony Kofi Dunia is the General Overseer of GlobeServe Ministries International.
We believe that the law alone, standing alone to fight issues of child trafficking and child labor, won't be able to sustain this. But if we can combine it with the preaching of the gospel, bringing people out of darkness, then we believe that we can have a lasting solution for our people and our generation.
After years of educational outreaches, Reverend Dunia says there has been a significant impact in the area, with about 5 children rescued and restored to their parents.
You know, the gospel has power to transform lives. And we have already now seen about 5 children that have been restored to their parents, that actually not only restored, but that are actually pursuing their education. So we are beginning to see the effects of the power of this gospel of justice happening here.
Reverend Dunia, noticing the moral and ethical implication of child trafficking, stressed that there is an urgent need for collective action within the community and charged all to speak out to help change the status quo.
Child trafficking is a big issue, and child labor is a big issue, affects all nations. But do you know what? If we are ever going to be able to solve this problem, it will take our collective efforts. And that if we see anything happening negatively in our small communities, it is our responsibility to speak out, to say something. If we see children being trafficked, we shouldn't turn a blind eye. We need to rise up and say something.
Some of the participants, most of whom are fisher folks, shared with us what they learned from the encounter and admonished parents within the area to stay away from child labor and keep their children in school to help secure their future. It is bad how we take our children along to the lake. We have to take them to school so that they get better education and help us in future. That is an ancient practice, and we have noticed that it is not helpful to us, and we have to put a stop to it. So we have to educate our children to help them have a better future. The Gospel of Justice Conference, which was held under the theme Changing Lives and Transforming Communities Through the Gospel of Justice, saw over 100 participants benefiting from a free vocational training aimed at helping empower them and their families. Anna Sabit, Joy News, AG.
Up next is Business Update with Benjamin Akapo.
Welcome aboard our business updates this morning. In our first story, the Ghana Institute of Freight Forwarders and allied trade bodies are taking a stand against what they describe as unfair practices by shipping lines. Now, they are planning to stage a protest today, fueled by a number of grievances, including what they say is exploitative pricing by shipping lines, arbitrary fees, and the imposition of demurrage charges, even on weekends and public holidays. They're calling on the Ministry of Transport to intervene to ensure fair trade practices at the ports. John Mante is the Vice President of the Ghana Institute of Freight Forwarders.
Tomorrow, God willing, thankfully, the police will be there. We have gone to the police. They are providing us with 150 men. We meet at the Ghana Institute of Freight Forwarders in Tema. We'll march through the principal streets of Tema. We'll go to all the shipping lines, and then we'll meet, present our demands to these directors of the shipping lines. We've told them that they should scrap administrative charges. They should scrap fees such as public days and weekends that they don't work. They should scrap those charges. Anybody, you import a container, You go to your warehouse, you empty the container, you bring the container in safe condition to the shipping company. Yet they continue to charge you for empty container fee. In fact, they go ahead to charge importers and businesses cleaning fee. Assuming that you bring a container full of televisions, you go to your warehouse, you unstop the televisions, you return the container in same condition to the line. They are charging you for cleaning that container. We should also not forget, even with spare parts that you say, oh, probably with spare parts that will even probably drip oil. These charges are levied at the port of loading, which means that any shipping line knows that you are charged. They know the cargo you are carrying. So in terms of their voyage estimates, they include these charges, thinking that, of course, definitely your container will drip oil. So they add the cleaning fee to it. Yet, once they come to town, they charge cleaning fee again.
And our next story, the Bank of Ghana has signaled its intention of taking some tough action against banks and other financial institutions that are not complying with the Credit Reference Bureau. This caution was captured in the annual credit reporting data for 2023. Speaking to Joy Business, Senior Finance Lecturer at the University of Ghana Business School, Dr. Jabir Mohammed, welcomed plans by the central bank to impose sanctions on institutions that are failing to comply.
Important. You know, people, even as local parlance, when you go to the chief palace and you are fined the first day, and you go again and you are fined again in a hefty manner, you will not want to do anything anymore, right? So the Bank of Ghana should give them a stricter punitive measure, such as heavy fines. Because, you see, the stability of the banks is very important. If you recall that in the past, banks got collapsed because most of the banks had a lot of issues with their non-performing loans. They have serious issues with their financial information and the dealings and all of that. So when credit information is properly shared, you will notice that some of these things can be curtailed.
And it's a wrap for business, and I'm handing over now to Sweetie Abochi.
And that's how we're wrapping up for the AM News on the AM Show. You want to stay with us because the conversations begin, starting with a news review. Coming up shortly.